Hi, today I would like to talk to you about the psychiatry. The psychiatry, the whole social structure falls into the category with the police. Why? Because if a psychiatrist thinks somebody is ripe for the psychiatry ward, and if you don't want to be hospitalized, they will call the police, tell them that you're psychic, or they will tell them something in order for them to bring you into the hospital. Why do they do that? Because the society needs people to experiment on, to put them in control. And the police are very willing. They're both governmental organizations. They are both willing to do the job. And also, in that way, psychiatry makes sure that we are judged. Whoever comes into a psychiatric ward, that we are judged by a normal people. Okay. If you're 40 and 50 years old, you have come to the conclusions, a life lesson conclusion that nobody is normal, okay? And most people would buy into the psychiatry bullshit. The psychiatry is bullshit. I will read you a few comments from, if you Google psychiatry, is psychiatry real, is psychiatry verified, you will get answers such as this. Okay, let me buy psychiatric diagnosis scientifically meaningless. On the 8th of July, in Science Daily, 2019, a new study has concluded that psychiatrist diagnoses are scientifically worthless as tool to identify discrete mental disorders. Okay? And also, the mental disorders are the accuracy of psychiatric diagnosis was the higher for cognitive disorder, 60%, followed by depression, 50%, and anxiety disorders, 46%. Whereas the accuracy of diagnosing psychosis was 0. So anyone diagnosed with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, that's a psychosis disorder. It's 0. Okay. Somewhere, I think I've read it on a. If you chat GPT or Google, they will give you an answer, and they will give you an answer that I think only 80% of anyone who was diagnosed with psychosis was 0. Okay, let's go further on. The problem with psychiatry. Psychotherapist commands that the DSM, it's a psychiatry Bible. It's a book of gathered all psychiatric illnesses, okay? And it's not a scientific, but a product of unscrupulous politics and bureaucracy. Okay, at this point, I would like to let you know that I don't know how many, it was probably about 5 years ago. I was Googling ADHD, I'm so sorry. And I came across to this video that was an insert from an American, I don't know whether it was Fox or CNN, from an American media platform that was reporting on somebody that was on one of the psychiatrists that was called Leo, I can't remember, Leo Blindenberg or something Berg, basically. And he said on his deathbed that because he wanted to die peacefully and without any burden, he would actually admit that he invented ADHD to be a fake disease, and it was invented. Okay, now if I look at ADHD on this, It will be all how is it treated, how you can get help, what medicines to take. It will give you all advice how to make yourself better. You won't find anything that will make my statement to be true. So after I found this video, I sent it to Ministry of Health in Slovenia, National Health National Institute for Public Health, and I've sent it to a few private practices of psychologists, and I asked them, why do you lie to your clients that ADHD exists if there's a proof that it doesn't exist? So after that, I think about a week after I sent all these videos to different outlets, I couldn't find the video again. Yes, that's how you know when things disappear, that you can't find them anymore. That's how you know you've been watched. Somebody is obviously doing research on me, not just me on somebody else. Okay. I'm just going to go through, I made few screenshots because the internet on this one is not available. So I had to find okay, on May the 22nd, it doesn't say the year, so I would assume that it's 24. No, okay. On May the 22nd, 2024, the American Psychiatric Association will release the 5th diagnosis of Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. That's DMS-5, okay? That's the short for DMS-5. It classifies psychiatric diagnoses and the criteria required to meet them. Gary Greenberg, one of the book's biggest critics, claims these disorders aren't real, they are invented. Author of Manufacturing Depression, The Secret History of Modern Disease, that's Gary Greenberg's book, and contributor to the New York Times and other publications. Greenberg is a practicing psychotherapist. Okay, he's a practicing psychotherapist, and he doesn't believe in DSM, that his colleagues, psychiatrists, use for diagnosing disease. Okay, also there's another thing. Because DSM is not scientifically proven, it shouldn't be even put into the same category as other medical diseases, because if it's not scientifically proven, it can't be real. Okay, so it should be labeled as a disease. It should be labeled as an opinion, not a disease. Yet psychiatrists are abusing the system to get their way into the medical field because they don't feel left behind. So that's another problem. So basically, he's saying the book of woe, the making of the DSM and the unmaking of psychiatry, is his expose of the business behind the creation of mental illness. Okay, let's go. Let's go further down the road. Okay, that's where they they realized the book is the scam in the 19th century. As the rest of the medicine became oriented toward diagnosing illnesses by seeking their causes in biochemistry in the late 19th and early 20th century, the claim to authority of any medical specialty hinged on its ability to diagnose suffering. To say, okay, your sore throat and fever are strep throat. But psychiatry was unable to do that and was in danger of being discredited. As early as 1886, prominent psychiatrists worried that they would be left behind or written out of the medical kingdom. For reasons not entirely clear, the government turned to the American Medical Psychological Association, later the American Psychiatric Association, or APA, to tell them how many mental people were out there. They used the opportunity to give the government the answer. They use the opportunity to make themselves important. Psychiatrists would like to feel that they are important. That's why they protect their field with teeth and nails, okay, even from their own kind. So it's circular, thinking that anybody who commits suicide is depressed. Anybody who goes into a school with a loaded gun and shoots people must have mental illness. I don't know, I have no comment about this, because I am one of these people who think that if you do that, what I just said, you have a mental illness. Do all criminals have mental illness? I think what I just described, if you go into a school and shoot people, that you're definitely a criminal. That's no doubt about this. But if you have mental illness, that's another problem. And I'm not gonna mix my opinion with the DSM lists disorders, inverted comma disorders. How are disorders different from disease or illnesses? Okay, that's another part that's okay. I'm just gonna read it and you make a decision for yourself. The difference between disease and disorder is an attempt on the part of the psychiatry to evade the problem they are presented with. Disease is a kind of suffering that's caused by biochemical pathology, something that can be discovered and targeted with magic bullets. But in many cases, our suffering can't be diagnosed that way. Psychiatry was in a crisis in the 1970s over questions like what is a mental illness and what mental illness exists. One of the first things they did was try to finance the problem of mental illness met the definition of a disease, okay, and how to cure it. They created a category called disorder. It's a rhetorical device. It's rhetorical. It basically means it's not a disease, but it's close to a disease, okay? It's saying it's a sort of a like disease, but not calling it disease, because all the other doctors will jump down their throats asking, where's your blood test? Basically, what other doctors, psychiatrists, in a medical field, psychiatrist is the lowest in a sense of respect, because psychiatrists have no proof of what they're saying. It's their subjective opinion. So disorder, the reasons there haven't been any sensible findings trying genetics or any kind of molecular biology DSM categories is not only that our instruments are crude, but also that the DSM categories aren't real. It's like using a map of the moon to find your way around Russia. Okay. Next one. There was a question posed, but I can't read the question because it's not shown. So I'm just going to read what it says here, and maybe you can find out the question by when you read the answer. Psychiatrists wouldn't. Well, psychiatrists would say it sometimes, but wouldn't say it another times. They will say it when it comes to claiming that they belong to squarely in the field of medicine. But if you press them and ask if these disorders exist in the same way that cancer and diabetes exist, they will say no. It's not that there are no biological correlates to any mental suffering. Of course there are, but there are specifically and specificity and sensitivity that are required to distinguish pneumonia from lung cancer. Even the kind of distinction, it just doesn't exist. Okay, let's go down a little further. Okay, this is one of the craziest things that some homosexuality was before 70s in the previous century. It was prohibited. It was considered as a mental illness. Now, when all the homosexuals came out who worked in politics, obviously the homosexual as a mental illness was discarded from the DSM. Homosexuality, in the most obvious example, until 73 last century, it was listed as a disease. It's very easy to see what's wrong with drapetomania, but it's easier to see the balancing act involved in saying homosexuality is or isn't a disease, how something has to shift in society. The people who called homosexuality a disease weren't necessarily bigots or homophobes. They were just trying to understand people who wanted to love people of their own sex. Disease is a way to understand difference that includes compassion. What has to shift is the idea that the same-sex love is acceptable. Once the idea is there, it doesn't make sense to call homosexuality a disease. So, okay. Another thing, what other psychiatrists think of the psychiatrists who diagnose mental illnesses by the DSM. The psychiatrists aren't responsible for it. They own it, they sell it, and they license it. The DSM is created by a group of committees. It's a bureaucratic process. In place of scientific findings, the DSM uses expert consensus to determine what mental disorders exist and how you can recognize them. Disorders come into the book the same way the law becomes part of the book of statutes. People suggest it, discuss it, and vote on it. Homosexuality was deleted from the DSM by a referendum. A straight-up vote, yes or no. It's always that explicit, and the votes are not public. In case of DSM-5, committee members were forbidden to talk about it, so we will never really know what the deliberations were on that. So, okay, if I can say a personal thing, anybody who watches this video and recognizes me, they will know I've been to psychiatry wards. Why? There's one reason I'm not going to discuss here, but another reason that is, if you feel really, really bad and you don't know how tomorrow's going to go because you feel really bad, you go to a hospital, you go to an emergency room, and if the doctors can't find anything, they will send you to a psychiatrist. And if you're sent to a psychiatrist, if they decide that you are fit to be inside, to take you in, they're gonna say they're gonna take you in. Now, either you go voluntary or you go by force. And if you don't agree what they say, they will take you in by force, get a court to sign you in, and get the court decide how long you're going to stay in. So every time I was taken into psychiatry wards, it would be by my own choice. To continue, Francis also worries that your criticism are anti-psychiatry. It's universal paranoia of psychiatry that everybody who disagrees with them is pathological. And you can't disagree with a psychiatrist without getting a diagnosis. I've been writing critically about psychiatry for 10 years, and I've always encountered that. Psychiatry is a defensive profession, that they have a lot to protect, and they know their weaknesses. To repel criticism in the strongest way possible from their point of view, you diagnose the critic. So this is just one of the statements of one of the critics. Who's in charge of DSM? Psychiatry is in charge of DSM. Psychologists in the other mental health profession use DSM, but they can't prescribe. But psychiatrists have the power and money. It's critical of the mental health professionals in general, including my own practice. But the APA has approved this business to themselves. They guard it jealously, they protect it with rules and tactics. And yes, they take disproportionate amount of the heat for this thing, but it's their baby. They make hundreds of millions of dollars off of this deal, okay? It's the money. The psychiatry and the pills that they describe, it's a billions of dollars. It's ridiculous how much money they make. The DSM-5 will come out on May the 25th, and people will take their pot shots at it, like shooting fish in a barrel. I had to be convinced to write this book, though how hard is it to criticize an organization that seriously thinks that it's okay to call internet use disorder? You have a disorder for internet use, okay? A mental illness, that's considered a mental illness. They're going to take the shot after shot, and the response will be ineffectual and weak. They will bob and wave and talk about living document, and unleash their line of bullshit, okay? Is there another solution? The solution is to take the thing away from them. The APA owns the diagnosis. Psychiatrists own the diagnosis of the DSM, okay? It's not the medicine, they own their baby. It's absurd. And if you add the viciousness of the document and the incompetence with which the revision was carried out, take the damn thing away from it. Okay, let's go to another. Most diagnostic concepts in psychiatry have not been demonstrated to be valid in this sense. There was another. The DSM is a collection of opinions. When the committee of psychiatrists change their opinions of mental disorder might be removed from the DSM and some of the new ones included. Okay, it's like conducting a business. That sounds the same. I'm just reading how the... Yes, we've come to an end. So, and with everything that I experienced at the psychiatry wards have been all you do all day. You just wait around for the doctor to call you, but you are left to your own devices. So they watch you basically. And you are at the doctor's office like few minutes, you maybe need to say a few more things, and that's it. They diagnose you, but what you say in a few minutes time. It's not like the real doctors. They take time, they take tests, they send the tests to somebody else to check it. So it's all very detailed, but in a psychiatry field, it's like somebody will put these symptoms forward, somebody will put those symptoms forward. It's like juggling with symptoms and what comes down. Okay, and also I watched few videos about the psychiatry, and there was one person that kind of stood out because he obviously read the DSM, and he would compare the diagnosis with something else that was in there, and it was all the same, but it was put in a different category of diagnosis. So does that seem reliable to you? It doesn't seem reliable to you. So in the end, also, I've seen people come in really world-minded and good and critically thinking like I am. I take myself as a critical thinker. I don't know whether I am or not, but I think I am. I try to be, or at least that. She came out as a vegetable. She was a vegetable. She was like drooling down out of her mouth, and she didn't know what to do with herself. And her mother had to take her out because she wasn't getting any better. She was getting drastically worse, and the mother was afraid she's not going to have her daughter back. So after months of fighting for her daughter, she got her back, and the daughter she's just a vegetable. She doesn't know how to take care of herself. So her mother, who looked about 80 years old, was taking care of her daughter. She looked about 50. So that was a sad sight to see. And also she told me that psychiatrists lied about her progress and all the bullshit. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Also, I would like to add, psychiatry is evil. It's a satanic, it's an evil business, and it's not good for people. Let me know in the comments. Thank you.